You know, this great land used to be nothing but wilderness, but today with 215 million people, wilderness is about as hard to find as a park somewhere. Our guest tonight has written, among many books, the latest two are these about trips and trails in mid-America and in the eastern United States. And he's written books on swamps, and the last time he was on this show, we were talking about his book called Tripping in America, which was a description of where to go to see things like buzzards in Hinckley, Ohio, and whatever. And then Bill Thomas is with us again. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Welcome back.
Thank you.
What have you been doing since last year? And I saw you.
Well, we've been doing so many things, it's kind of hard to relate, but we're working on 5 books right now. Finished up The Swamp, which will be out in October, which includes 22 great swamps in America, and it's a coffee table type book with all color photography, which I did, and includes the Everglades and the Big Cypress Swamp, of course, here in Florida, and the Green Swamp up in Orlando. We're working on a book now on the Florida Keys, a nature book on the wild Keys of Florida, and a nature book on rivers of North America, among those that we've mentioned.
These 2 books, Bill, really fascinate me because I have felt the problem is I know where there are wilderness areas, but I don't know what to do with them. I know I'd like to be in the middle of them and maybe camp, but that's all. I don't know how to get to them really. I don't know what to do when I get there. And I guess that's what these books
These are guidebooks, basically, to the eastern wilderness areas. Now, there are wilderness areas in the west, old wilderness areas, some of them dating back to shortly after the turn of the century. Those areas are still there, of course, and that's where you would expect to find wilderness. But in the eastern United States, many people thought wilderness disappeared many years ago because of the great population influx. It's not true, of course. There are wilderness areas within a few miles of New York City, for instance, which is in New Jersey, which is the most populated state in the Union.
Really?
Pardon me. But only 26 miles west of Times Square is an area called the Great Swamp of New Jersey. And you can go there and have a wilderness experience. There are families of Canada geese there in the summertime, in the early spring. Deer and that sort of thing that you wouldn't really expect to find that close in to a populated area.
Now, let's define the term wilderness. What do you mean exactly when you say wilderness?
I think of an area that, although it may not have been untouched by man since this country was settled by the Europeans, it is an area that you could provide a wilderness experience with a little imagination. You could have the same type experience here today that the early pioneers had in the days when they came to this country. There may be trails leading through the area for your convenience, but on the other hand, you still, if you ignore the trail, you can still have the same type of wilderness experience.
Are there places in this country today that have never really been explored by anybody?
Sure, there are areas right here in the Everglades where people have never been, I'm sure.
Are you?
No.
Really?
No, I'm serious.
That seems hard to believe. You'd think some boat's gone through. But you're saying there's probably an area no one's ever been.
There are many areas that people have never set foot on in this country. There are areas in the Big Thicket in Texas, in East Texas, where people have gone in and been lost for days. There are areas where people have disappeared, gone in and disappeared, and never were heard from again. And not necessarily that somebody plotted against them, it's just that the wilderness swallowed them up and they weren't able to find their way out again.
You spend a lot of time in these areas. What benefit do you think they have for people to visit?
Well, I think it's a psychological thing. It's necessary to get away from everybody once in a while. For some people particularly, it is for me. I dislike crowds. I'm sort of a loner, I suppose, but I like to get away into areas, and it's necessary. I feel myself relaxing. I can go out to the Big Cypress Swamp, for instance, in the Fakahatchee Strand out here, and I feel myself letting go, you know, and relaxing, something that I can't do otherwise, and I think it's necessary in many instances to do that. I think you can explore your inner self. You can discover your inner self as well as discovering some of the beauties of nature that have been unaffected by man over the years.
A lot of people, though, are kind of hesitant to get off all by themselves. They're afraid of either being lonely or surviving.
Sense of insecurity, I think, really, basically, and that's what I mean. If you have that sense, maybe you should take it in small doses, but You'll find that you'll gain a lot of self-confidence by going into these areas. You'll learn a self-reliance because you don't have to depend upon other things. Many of these areas, if you really into the thing and know what plants are edible and this sort of thing, you can actually survive in an area like that without any outside help.
Other than the Everglades, where's the closest wilderness area from Miami?
Well, I'd say parts of the Big Cipher Swamp. There's a wilderness area on Sanibel Island, for instance, designated. It's part of the National Wildlife Refuge over there. Small, but it's well worthwhile. Alexander Springs in the Ocala National Forest is another good one. You can canoe some of those streams up there and be totally away from anyone else, particularly on weekdays. Now, on weekends, you get quite a few other canoeists coming down.
The two books, again, are called Eastern Trips and Trails and Mid-America Trips and Trails, and they show you where to go and what to do and how to get, if you need guidance, how to get into a wilderness area and what to do with it. Bill Thomas, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Joe.
I wish you many happy trips.
Thank you.
See you again next year, I hope.
Okay, good.
We'll be right back.